Friday, everybody. Welcome to another edition of Mean Streets presented by So Rare, live here on our FTN Network YouTube page and Game Plus Network. Hopefully, everybody having a fantastic morning here. We got a lot to talk about, but there's no NHL and there's no NBA. So it's going to be a heavy football show. We got our guy Jeremy of FTN Fantasy joining in just a little bit. Popes FFH on the Twitter machine, also the co-host of the FTN Dynasty podcast. So we're going to talk a little Dynasty fantasy football today, mostly rookies. Want to get his thoughts on rookies. People are starting to do rookie-only drafts, so we're going to give you a little bit of a sneak peek of the ADP over at Sleeper. I know everybody's drafting elsewhere, and the ADP I think you can take with really a grain of salt, but I've completed a couple rookie drafts. We're going to try to help those out that are going to start to do their own rookie drafts, like rookies only, not a just straight up dynasty startup. We can sprinkle in a little redraft talk with Jeremy, but mostly going to talk about like if you are a user over at Sleeper, and I think Sleeper is fantastic. I mean, it really is unbelievable, and I like the format and the layout quite a bit. In fact, we've moved a couple of our home leagues. I'm still strangling with one of my commissioners. We've been over at NFL.com for like 20 years, and I'm trying to get him to move everything over. And it's just, he just loves all the, the history of the league and, the high scoring weeks and all that stuff. And it's like, forget about it. Let's move over. The times has changed a little bit, and Sleeper is great. It's fantastic. But we are going to take a look at the ADP. And I think, when we show you, we're going to go like 4 rounds deep. Assuming that you're in a 12-team league, we'll show the top 12, and then we'll dive into, the top 24 and 36, and we'll finish up with basically the top 50 picks on average right now. So drafts are happening over there. I know a lot of startup dynasty drafts are happening. So even just straight up redraft, which it's way too early to be doing that, in my opinion. We talk about the pros and the cons of drafting this early at Underdog Fantasy and things like that, but it's just way too early to be doing, I think, redraft leagues. But a couple dynasty startups here and there, keeper leagues, and rookie only drafts. So you'll see quarterbacks kind of buried. Like, for example, Anthony Richardson's the only quarterback going in the top 12 picks on average over at Sleeper at the moment, just rookies only. Of course, if you're in a super flex league and even just in a deeper league, like a 16-team league, these guys are going to go a little bit earlier. Like one of my dynasty leagues, it's just one quarterback, but there's 16 teams in the whole league. These quarterbacks are going to go pretty early because it's slim pickings. I know there's one team that has like a Brady and a Rodgers lost. Brady, Rodgers is near the end, probably going to want to address the quarterback position. I don't know about early, but it's all about context, of course. But just my goal here today is on what is a quiet night in the NHL and in the NBA is to talk with our guru here about some of these rookies and, some to reach on, maybe some to fade, some to target, some that are maybe buried down kind of the depth chart, the ADP, if you will, over at Sleeper, see if we can seek some value and go about it that way. So if you have any questions at all in your keeper league and your dynasty league, now is the time to get them in. Always circling back on these videos. As I said yesterday, I know there's a short shelf life when it comes to giving MLB props, which we will towards the end of the show. I got like 4 or 5 pitching props. I'm going to scan the diamond and hook you guys up with a couple props to set into what is a long weekend for my American friends here. So hopefully we can finish the week here strong with a few picks, but the goal is just to, Quan says it there. Ask Meaney, sure. Ask Meaney, ask Jeremy, ask Pope, ask anybody over at ftnfantasy.com, but always circling back on these videos. So if you're stumbling across later, you're listening on iTunes, Spotify, you're watching on Game Plus Network, you can always hop on over to our FTN Network YouTube page, just in the comment section. You don't have to tag me. I will circle back. You can slide in the DMs at Chris Meaney. I'm pretty sure you can slide into Jeremy's DMs as well, Pope's FFH, as I mentioned. So any fantasy football questions, by all means, leave them. I agree. Adam Shemansky in the house. Sleeper is the GOAT of all platforms. Again, Mike in the house. Sleeper is the GOAT. Yes. Imagine still using ESPN and Yahoo. I don't want to take any shots at those platforms, but I'll tell you what, ESPN, yikes. We're going to do a couple mock drafts in the near future, FTN mock drafts. We're going to do it on Sleeper. And I remember the debate a couple years ago when, we're coming up on our 3rd birthday here at FTN, but remember when we first started to do this draft, I know Ratcliffe didn't care. He's like, whatever, just tell me what time the draft's at and I'll be there. And there was a massive debate between Yahoo and ESPN, and most of the people liked ESPN, and I was trying to push for Sleeper, but it's just, Jeremy's going to be able to touch on Sleeper. It's great. It's just, it's a great app. I'm going to say about that. I mean, it's you see the players that are trending. It's just very accessible and easy. And the NFL.com app and the ESPN.com app is just a little plain to me in Yahoo. But anyways, I wasn't here to just rep those other platforms. We are friends of those platforms as well. We're going to have some guests here in the future that work for those platforms. So we will have them on, but we're going to give a little love to Sleeper here today. Okay. Yes, get the questions in by all means. It is all about context. Of course, when you're super flex, these quarterbacks are going to go fairly early, but we'll dive into all that stuff. As for the NHL and the NBA, we were spot on with the Celtics winning again. I mean, Miami may be in trouble. You don't want that to go 7 games. Derek White is our guy when it comes to 3-point props. Grant Williams, not so much, and the Heat didn't cover. The NHL was okay, slight profit. This is what we had yesterday, and because there's no games today, I'm going to go back to it very similar. Those that are subbed over at ftnbets.com, you guys are going to be able to get all my picks, and we'll be active in the Discord channel and things like that. Of course, we're still running the 3-day trials for free over at FTN Daily, ftnbets.com, so you can get all the goodness. But, Tyler Seguin was one off. Marchessault didn't hit, but the bottom 4 all hit here, like Rupe Hintz and Shea Theodore. I'm hoping that we could eventually get Shea Theodore and Alex Pietrangelo to 2.5. We're just getting 1.5, and they're completely juiced. Both guys, Theodore had 3 shots, Pietrangelo had 5 shots. These guys have been hitting consistently, but we have to put them into a parlay because they're 1.5 and they're like minus 210. I just don't understand it. But that one hit, and then Hintz and Pavelski with the points. We had Pavelski with the overtime winner last night, extending the series. It was a 3-2 W for the Dallas Stars on home ice, the series shifting back to Vegas. And then Eichel Marchessault connected to as well on points. Marchessault we had as a point at minus 132, I believe, as a single bet. Eichel had a bunch of chances last night, but it was Marchessault who scored a goal, and then Stars money line. How about Jason Robertson last night? I mean, a very quiet first 2 rounds. He had 2 goals in the first 2 rounds. This is a guy that had 46 snipes in the regular season, and he's got 4 goals here in this round. He had 2 last night. He had 11 shots on goal and 14 shot attempts. Puck hog. Maybe pass it over to our guy Pavelski and Hintz so we can get a few more shots there. But it's good. I'm going to go back to him. I'm going to be going to Rupe Hintz again. I may shy away from our guy, Wyatt Johnston, who's not on this board, but didn't get the same sort of scoring chances from Wyatt Johnston without Jamie Benn, without Evgeny Donanov. So missing both of his line mates there. But I will be going back to this as well. It worked out for us in that Carolina and Florida series. We hit the 24 there. Actually went to 10-1. I think we got a shot away from Martinook, but pretty close here. Aiden Hill, Cruz passes save prop. We had 3 shots for Hintz. We had the 2 for Pavelski and Robertson, as I mentioned. Cruz passed that number as well. Be going back to that one tomorrow. I think the same process applies, and I think it was the correct process as well. So I do believe that Dallas is going to go into Vegas and win again as well. 3 overtime games. It could easily be up 3-1 in this series, but we'll see if they can pull it off. We're going to break. Enough talk off the top here. We're going to bring in Jeremy, and we're going to get into the football talk. So now's the time, as I mentioned, get those questions in. We're going to have a lengthy discussion here about rookies, and apparently he's an RB enthusiast. I saw it on his Twitter machine, so I may ask him an RB question or 2 as well. He's shaking his head. Yes, lately I am. We'll be back in a couple. Hang tight.
Play So Rare MLB, a free revolutionary fantasy game and marketplace that transforms fans into general managers. Build your team with ownable digital player cards. Collect, buy, sell, and trade to optimize your lineup. Compete against So Rare managers from around the world. Climb leaderboards and advance to elite competitions. Based on your player's performance on the field, win rewards like game tickets, merch, and much more. Draft your set of free cards now at sorare.com/MLB. Play So Rare MLB, a free revolutionary fantasy game and marketplace that transforms fans into general managers. Build your team with ownable digital player cards. Collect, buy, sell, and trade to optimize your lineup. Compete against so rare managers from around the world. Climb leaderboards and advance to elite competitions. Based on your player's performance on the field, win rewards like game tickets, merch, and much more. Draft your set of free cards now at sorare.com/MLB.
Back in. Quan tells me Pope is in the building, and he is here now live on Mean Streets here, presented by So Rare Game Plus Network, FTN Network. Before we introduce Jeremy and get his thoughts here, I want to get your thoughts on the latest Dynasty podcast as well. A little housekeeping. You are south of the border. I'm north of the border, but we are taking care of our American friends here, and we're running a little Memorial Day weekend sale. As you see, you get your first month of FTN Daily Diamond for just $1. $1. You kidding me? Promo code here, MDW. The best ball guide is included in this. All sports, all optimizers, players, ownership projections, all that good stuff for you. But the best ball guide is really what it's all about, in my opinion. I mean, you want to play some DFS. This is great. You play some MLB DFS, you PGA happening, NFL around the corner, of course. But this is just your first month, so you won't be getting involved in any NFL DFS. But you can do some underdog fantasy best ball drafts, and we have the guide for you. Rankings, your rankings, Pope, are there. Mine, we have stacks, values, strategy pieces, players to target, players to fade. It is all there for you, included in the best ball guide. So again, MDW, only $1 for your first month of FTNDaily.com. Officially, welcome in. Happy Friday. Thanks for taking the time. I know we've been trying to hook up. You're a busy dude.
Yeah.
We haven't been able to really chat since that NFL draft, but talk to me about the FTN Dynasty podcast. You're doing some good stuff over there. What was the latest episode? What was a couple players you guys keyed in on?
Yeah, I mean, me and Adam, we're slowed down a little bit. We were kind of punching out a ton of them there to get as many rookie prospect series episodes as we could. This last one, we kind of went through and talked about 5 trade targets. Well, it was 5. It was 3 quarterbacks and 2 tight ends. Some guys like Dak Prescott, Kenny Pickett, and then a little bit deeper at tight end. You know, my boy Hayden Hurst, still hoping.
Your boy Hayden Hurst. Yeah, I've been getting some Hayden Hurst, but that Carolina stack is easy to do and over at Underdog Fantasy, right? You kind of have to pick and choose between Thielen and Mingo and go one of those two guys, but you can definitely get Bryce and Hayden Hurst and take, a shot at maybe DJ Chark or something like that. It's a decent late round stack if you don't, get a couple elite stacks to start. I think it's very interesting. So you're in on acquiring Dak Prescott. I think bounce back, bringing in Brandon Cooks and company, going to help him out a little bit.
Yeah, I'm in on Dak Prescott. I put a tweet out a couple days ago now. I mean, the back half of the season, he averaged over 20 fantasy points per week. I know it's a Kellen Moore offense outside of the Schottenheimer offense that we're going to get now. But if you really look at Schottenheimer's numbers, there's also an article that I just did, actually, the Dynasty Stock Watch mentions Dak Prescott, gets a little bit deeper into it. But Schottenheimer kind of, although he does lean into the run a little bit more, he actually has had over his career a ton of top 15, I believe, if I remember correctly, offenses in the red zone as far as passing attempts for touchdowns as well. So he does tend to lean a little bit on the run or the passing game in the red zone as opposed to normally throughout the rest of his offense. But still, I don't believe that this offense is going to hand Tony Pollard, Ronald Jones, and Deuce Vaughn, 35 touches a game.
Right.
Yeah. I still think that they're going to be passing a little bit heavier than what Schottenheimer has in the past. So I'm not totally set that this is going to be a boring, stagnant offense that they're kind of leading towards, and most people think. So, I do think that Dak's still in that category of being a top 12 quarterback. We've seen it where they weren't overly explosive in his time with Zeke, and even Garrett was there. Yeah, he had a little bit more of a fresh mind, but they were still not necessarily this throw the ball 40, 50 times. So I think that can still have a solid fantasy season as well. I just think that the quarterback position is not necessarily like weak, but like Dak's kind of right in that area. And if he's close to 19, 20 points, he's going to be a back end quarterback one. And you can get him super cheap because, like I said, what I just mentioned, most people have that pre notion that this offense is going to get really slow and they're going to just run the ball. And even at that, I don't think that Dak's going to be. It's might be a little bit less volume, but definitely more efficient, I think, as far as a quarterback play goes from him.
Yeah, I mean, they don't have that bulldog in the red zone, so maybe, you can see a couple more rushing touchdowns like we saw from him early on in his career before some of the injuries. I don't know. Dak is okay to me. I think he makes her a better super flex quarterback. I think I'd rather him as as my super flex than my starting quarterback here. NBA rigged in the house. Yo, Jeremy, glad to see you on Chris's pod. Go Bills Mafia, right? Sweat emoji in there as well. Health. Adam brings up a good point. Healthier Gallup, adding Cooks. I think Dalton Schultz. I think he's really going to miss Dalton Schultz, but they needed somebody opposite of CeeDee Lamb. You could really see it in the playoffs against the Niners. Like they needed somebody else to step up opposite of him. Gallup coming off that injury last season just really didn't touch the potential that we saw from him before the injury. So there are some nice pieces surrounding Dak. I like it. I like the call there. We had Mike in the house. He said he searched Gibbs and he found this video. So welcome in. Let's get right there. SEO is working really.
We can talk about Gibbs. Let's go
on. Let's talk some Gibbs here. So as I mentioned off the top, Sleeper, we are using Sleeper in terms of ADP. And again, like some of this stuff is a little bit, it's skewed. Like, let's be honest, Jackson Smith-Njigba is not the 25th overall pick. I don't think, in redraft leagues, it's certainly not going to be, but this is really just rookie drafts are happening a lot over at Sleeper. And just dynasty startups. Some of these guys may be going a little bit earlier, but we're focusing in here just on rookies. We could touch on it from a redraft standpoint or a little bit, but I really just wanted to focus in on rookies with you and people that are going to be doing rookie only drafts, in particular on Sleeper, and seeing, boom, you open up your draft board, and you can roll through the ADP and see some of these guys. So no surprise to see Bijan Robinson up at the top. So the ADP is 3, but he is the first rookie off the board on average. Jahmyr Gibbs there. And then you got the wide receiver run with JSN, Quentin Johnston, Jordan Addison, Zay Flowers, your boy now, your new boy, Dalton Kincaid in there is the first tight end off the board to the Buffalo Bills. Zach Charbonnet, Devon Achane, Kendre Miller, Michael Mayer is the second tight end here off the board. And then Anthony Richardson. So the first quarterback off the board. I've done 2 rookie only drafts. He has been the first quarterback off the board in my drafts. Jeremy, I actually saw him go first overall. It was a super flex league. So I kind of understand that. Again, it's all about context. People could be weak at the quarterback position, so they're aggressive early and getting themselves a quarterback here. But I would assume if you had the first overall pick, Robinson, maybe you want to get into Gibbs. You're an RB enthusiast. Would that be the second pick? Are you in agreement of this ADP? I guess if you need a running back, you're going to get it done. But if you're okay at the running back position, maybe would you consider Gibbs, or are you looking to the wide receiver pool at that point?
Yeah, I mean, if you're talking one quarterback, which this is what this ADP is, like Gibbs to me is kind of, you're taking him probably at 2, potentially. So for me, it would be really team situation. Most of these teams that if it is your own draft pick and you're in the first, second, third pick, like you're probably more than a running back away unless you had some really bad injury luck. So for me, I would possibly potentially start to think about Jackson at 2. Bijan's just too good to pass up at 1. I mean, you're going to get multiple years of real high-end production. Gibbs is a little bit more of a question mark. Yeah, he got his really good high draft capital, but there were still a lot of questions around him as far as his size and what his role is going to be at the NFL level. I do think he's going to be a quality fantasy asset, a good running back at the NFL level, but it's not as a sure thing as Bijan is. So at that point, you're kind of looking at it as in like, hey, my team's going to maybe not compete for 2 or 3 years. Maybe I'll go with JSN, who is a little bit more of a sure thing, but is likely to not produce a ton year 1. I think he still has some production, but obviously is more looking 2 or 3 years down the road. Maybe I flip that with Gibbs and Njigba, which you can see with their ADP being 20 and 24, that it's likely that has happened in the past. And I've seen it in a couple of my drafts. Most of the leagues I play in super flex. So you're talking quarterbacks here at 2, 3, 4. But in the one quarterback stuff, I would not be opposed to taking JSN at 2 over Gibbs. Just because I prefer to play it a little bit in a longer game. Whenever I do rebuilds or anything like that, I take 2 or 3 years. Yeah, you're not really competing, but trying to jump the gun and go just before running backs doesn't necessarily help you all the time at the top end of this draft,
So do you agree with that order? Like JS, to me, I do actually. That the order that it's fallen here over at Sleeper, JSN is the first wide receiver off the board, Quentin Johnston, Jordan Addison, and Zay Flowers. That's actually my order in terms of, dynasty, like looking ahead, not
Yeah.
redraft, looking ahead here. I mean, Addison would be
For
number one for me in a redraft
Mhm.
standpoint, but I think JSN with Tyler Lockett potentially out the door next year, following year, he can fall into being the number two. Quentin Johnston with Keenan Allen a little bit older, Mike Williams. These guys they haven't shown me recently that they can stay on the field and a little bit older for Keenan's standpoint. And then Zay Flowers, I like him, but there seems to be a lot going on there at the moment, with Baltimore, new offensive coordinator. I'm excited of the new look offense in Baltimore. I mean, they ran 11 personnel fewer than anybody last year. So we're going to see some one-on-one coverage for, either Zay Flowers, Odell Beckham Jr., Bateman stretching the field. You got to worry about, the dual threat of Lamar Jackson and J.K. Dobbins there. I mean, see fewer stack boxes, but is that the order you would go with, and those four from a dynasty standpoint?
Actually, no. So for me, it's JSN's a clear one. But to me, I have Jordan Addison at 2. I think that Addison's a better receiver than Quentin Johnston personally. He is a little bit on that smaller side, but he does very well as far as the manipulation in his routes and his ability to adjust his speed and everything within those routes. That creates a ton of separation. Now, yes, there should and probably likely worthy question marks is what he can do in the red zone at the NFL level, but I think he's going to be okay. He reminds me a lot of Calvin Ridley as far as his ability to separate. I mean, he's maybe not as polished of a route runner at the moment. Probably doesn't have that suddenness that Ridley does to his routes, but I think that's something he can develop. Playing side by side with Justin Jefferson, Jefferson's not going anywhere. The Vikings are going to pay him. And I know a lot of people are questioning, well, he's not tied to a quarterback. Cousins could be gone, blah, blah, blah. But if the Vikings are as good as we expect them to be, they're not taking a quarterback next year. They're going to have to pay Kirk Cousins to an extent. They're not going to just start over, I feel like. So outside of a massive trade, they're not going to be in position to get a good quarterback next season. So to me, I feel like there's a little bit more security there. It's just a false sense of not having it because of where Cousins at with his deal. But to me, I think there's a lot of question marks still with Johnston. Yes, he got decent draft capital, but these guys are all right around each other. And yes, it's a decent offense. Kellen Moore's going to probably make it a little bit more explosive, tied to Justin Herbert. I get it. But to me, Johnston felt a little bit too reliant on his physical abilities at the collegiate level. And I don't know if they're going to be as dominant at the NFL level because the players are better. So I still have questions there with Johnston. I would take him, I'd flip those two. And to be honest, Zay Flowers to me is another guy that I'd argue I'd even maybe take Kincaid over him. I know that we fall for this trap every year with tight ends. But to me, Kincaid feels like the player the Bills kind of wanted. They got him to use him. They've struggled at that secondary option in this passing offense. So to me, I think Kincaid plays a lot more out of the slot. They wanted to go to 12 personnel last year. They tried it with OJ Howard, and they just didn't like what Howard brought to the locker room. They got rid of him. They tried it with Quentin Morris, and Quentin Morris didn't pan out. I think you see a lot of 12 personnel / Kincaid out of the slot. And I just think that Kincaid has that potential to become, that Travis Kelce, that Mark Andrews, that George Kittle down the line, where I think Zay Flowers is a little bit more pigeonholed at the NFL level due to size, and that offense just doesn't excite me. I know it's Todd Monken coming in, but he has 2 good tight ends to use. He used them a lot in 2 tight ends at Georgia. I think you're going to see a lot of what that Georgia offense was, which was very successful for him. So I think you see a lot of 12 with Andrews and Likely out there, and Flowers will be out there, but I think you're going to see a rotation between Flowers and Bateman. And I think that both of them kind of get hurt that way, as well as them leaning a little bit on J.K. Dobbins, who's been super efficient. Outside of that ACL injury, we'd be talking, I think, would be one of the better running backs in this league. He's a very good runner. And I think now basically fully 2 years removed from that ACL, it's going to be even better for him. I think that no competition really added in that backfield with decent draft capital tells you that they're ready to kind of give him a significant role. Gus Edwards didn't look so good coming off of the injury as Dobbins did. So I think I'm a little bit more in probably on taking Kincaid over Flowers even. So that's kind of where that flip would happen for me. But as far as the receiver order goes, it's just Addison over Quentin Johnston.
Yeah, I was fighting with myself too. I have shares of Addison. I have one share of Addison and one share of Johnston. I kind of went back and forth with the two guys, and it was a super flex. And these guys actually fell to me to the later part of the first round, and I was pretty ecstatic to get those guys. And I thought you broke it down pretty good. Adam agrees with you. Adam over QJ too. He'll never be the one in Minnesota. And that's my one thing. Like, he never will, but I do view him as a better wide receiver than Quentin Johnston. I actually thought that there was a chance that he could be the first wide receiver, taken off the board in the draft. Like, I was in that camp. But Kevin O'Connell's a great coach, a great play caller. We'll see what happens in the quarterback play. But there is something to be said about being linked to a guy like Herbert, right, for your future. But he is still when I view Quentin Johnston, I still see like some flaws in his game. Like, clearly the drops, he's had some issues with drops. I don't think he's a polished route runner like some of these other guys in this class, but I do like the fact that he is linked to Justin Herbert, but it is kind of splitting hairs there. There's definitely
a higher ceiling out of Johnston. Like, if you're playing the game and you're shooting for ceiling, Johnston definitely probably has a higher ceiling than Addison. And I would totally agree with that. But to me, I think there's a way higher bust factor out of QJ than Addison. Addison just seems fair too.
I like that. Yeah.
Like he's going to succeed. Is he going to be super high end? Probably not. But we've seen this Minnesota offense with Kirk Cousins produce 2 top 12 wide receivers.
Oh, yeah.
I'm not years. Overly, I'm not too worried.
No, I agree. NBA Rig has a question for you since you're on Kincaid. ADP is lower than Gabe, hence is Gabe still a better value? This is probably more of a redraft question here, but I do believe that because everybody was so in on Gabe, is like drafting him as a top 20 in some spots as a redraft league, top 20 wide receiver, that he disappointed some people, where I feel I have a lot of shares of him in underdog best ball already. Like I feel like he has now become a value because maybe he let people down last year, which still 7 touchdowns. He still had like decent season. He just wasn't a wide receiver 2 or a wide receiver 3. What do you quickly, if you can touch on that question?
Yeah, I wasn't in on Gabe last year either. And even as a Bills fan, like I know his role in this offense, and it was what it was last year. He said that he's that big play threat. He was near the top of the league. I'd put another tweet from FTN data from the Stats Hub. Like, I think it was 33% of his targets were in the red zone. Like, he is kind of that role for the Bills. He's kind of that red zone deep threat type of player. And he's just a big boomer bust type of guy. If he doesn't score a touchdown, he's not going to get you a lot of fantasy points. So that's just his role. He's not going to see, 30 or probably 10, 15 targets a game. He's just not. He's going to see 5, 6. Most of them are going to be low percentage throws that are kind of the more deep shots. And yeah, he's going to hit every now and then. He's going to have an explosion week. I mean, you saw him score 4 touchdowns in the playoff game against the Chiefs. Like, that's his role. It's boomer bust, and that's kind of him. So he's kind of at a better value now. So for me, I don't mind going Davis just because we still don't know what Kincaid is. Yes, I have a lot of hopes. I do think that they use him excitingly. But I'm always for value. I'm never out on a player. I'm always out at ADP is how I like to kind of look at it. So it's kind of like, yeah, I'm in a little bit more on Gabe this year just because he's more priced where he should be.
All right, you RB enthusiasts. Before we wrap up this block, we'll do one more here with you, and we'll dig a little bit deeper. I know there's some people asking other players. We'll dig deeper here in this next block. Charbonnet, A-Chain, Miller. Listen, Miami's got a crowded backfield. Rumors that they'll be in on Dalvin Cook if he's released. Charbonnet is second-round pick. Last year, second-round pick, Kenneth Walker. I think it's a great real-life situation. I mean, Seattle got themselves a really good 1-2 punch out of the backfield. I think they got the best wide receiver in the draft. I think they got the best corner in the draft. I think they're on the rise. And Geno was, a top 10 quarterback last year, 5th in fantasy points per game, led the NFL in completion percentage. I really like the Seahawks team. Miller, questions with, of course, Alvin Kamara this season. They bring in a veteran in Jamal Williams. Out of those 3 running backs, if you were on the clock and you saw Charbonnet, A-Chain, Miller, who are you pulling the trigger on?
For me, it's Charbonnet. It was always Charbonnet ahead of these guys. I had A-Chain ranked very, very low compared to the consensus. Obviously, I brought him a little bit up because of the draft capital. Size is a concern. It's also the offense. I get everybody's excited. Like, it's a speed driven offense. It's that perimeter zone. Like, he's a former track guy. Like, it sounds super enticing, but let's be honest. This Miami backfield is a committee, hands down. It's not changing. They're not going to give him 20. They're not going to give him 30 touches in a game. You know, I mean, he's never going to see that. And it's rare that you see anybody get close to 30, but like, he's not getting that 20, that 18 even. I think this is going to be kind of a very heavy committee. I don't think Mostert or Wilson are really going anywhere. Obviously, if their age and talent declines, sure. But for me, it's not that A-Chain's bad. It's that I don't think his role is going to be very fantasy productive, let alone what weeks you're going to feel safe starting him. And I could be completely wrong. Maybe they go a different direction, but to me, it feels like his ability in the return game is part of the reason they took him so high. I also still do worry. Yes, he's a really good interior runner. There's rumors he's up over 190 pounds, but like, I'm just not in on him. A lot of people are. So for me, it's still Charbonnet. I think that this is going to be a good 1-2 punch, like you said. It's going to be interesting to see how they use them. I think Charbonnet's a better every down running back than Kenneth Walker. I think Walker's a little bit more, I want to put him in and get some electricness to my game. Like, he's very electric. He tries to bounce it. He tries to get 50 yards on every play. And at the NFL level, the coaches don't necessarily love that. Charbonnet is a little bit better at getting you those 5-8 yard chunk plays. So to me, I do think that I would still go with Charbonnet. I think that there's some potential there. And who knows what Seattle's really thinking with Walker. Yeah, he was explosive. He was great for fantasy, but like, drafting another guy in very similar draft capital the year after you drafted the last one, like, puts a little red flags to me. Like, they're saying something isn't right there, you know? So it should be interesting. That's where I'm at.
I'm a little
I
down
definitely
on
like Charbonnet over the other two.
There's not even really comparison, I don't think, in terms of talent. You know, from a landing spot, maybe we could see over time like A-Chain, but the thing with McDaniel coming from Shanahan, we just have a history of multiple running backs, right? Like, the scheme is great. Finds a great way of utilizing these running backs, but Mostert, Wilson, I mean, they brought back Gaskin, they draft A-Chain, they're rumored with Dalvin Cook. Like, there's just so much going on there at the moment. I think Miller could be in a situation where maybe over time he is more appealing than both guys, like, because they could move on from Kamara. This could be just, I don't know what's going on off the field, but it could be a lengthy suspension. They can move on from him. They spent the capital on him. Jamal Williams is like a veteran back. I don't see a big future for him either, but Charbonnet is just, I think when you're comparing the three, I just don't think there's any comparison. I think the skill set, as you said, like, he has potential to be a 3-down back, but at the moment, you know, Walker's there. We do got to break. We got to break. Guys, this isn't my list. This is Sleeper ADP. We'll dive in a little bit deeper here next. And Marty in the house, I think you can play Underdog Fantasy everywhere in Canada, just not in Ontario, not in the Ontario-Toronto region. So I'm on the far East Coast. I can play it. And Marty, if you're the Marty that I think you are, I believe you can play New Brunswick, but I'm not sure. We'll break. We'll be back in a couple. We're going to dig a little bit deeper. Hang tight.
Play So Rare MLB, a free revolutionary fantasy game and marketplace that transforms fans into general managers. Build your team with ownable digital player cards. Collect, buy, sell, and trade to optimize your lineup. Compete against So Rare managers from around the world. Climb leaderboards and advance to elite competitions. Based on your player's performance on the field, win rewards like game tickets, merch, and much more. Draft your set of free cards now at sorare.com/MLB.
The future of fantasy sports is here with So Rare. Build your teams just like an owner. Buy, sell, or trade officially licensed digital player cards. Build your 5-player weekly lineup, and you could win rewards like tickets, autographed jerseys, and more. The future of fantasy sports is here with So Rare, taking Dynasty to the next level.
Welcome back in. Let's dig a little bit deeper. We got 4 boards here, so I want to get through this with Pope. He's got to leave here soon, so we also are running out of time here on Game Plus Network. So we'll dig deeper. The first round is always so important, right? Now we're getting into the second round here. Again, this is sleeper ADP. These are not my rankings. In a future episode next week, I'll revisit my rankings here. But of course, all of our rankings are found over at ftnfantasy.com. So Mingo there at 13, Josh down. So another wide receiver run here, Mims and Rice. I really like Jayden Reed. Tajay Pierce is done here. Then we see a couple quarterbacks, of course. Anthony Richardson was in the last round. Bryce Young, CJ Stroud. Every league is different. Superflex, these guys are going to go much, much earlier. There's your boy, NBA rig, Tank Bigsby in there. Pick 20 on average, rookie only again. Roshan Johnson in there. Got another tight end, Laporta, and then Jalen Hyatt, who did go much earlier than these other wide receivers. I do believe he fell actually a lot later than I thought he would. You and I were talking about maybe him being a potential first-round pick in the NFL draft. Talk to me about this board. Who do you like? Who do you not like? What do you got?
Yeah, I mean, this is full of a lot of guys that I really like. I always had a feeling the second round would be really exciting in this draft class, especially in Superflex. But Josh Downs is a guy I still really like. I think that his game is really good. It's going to transition well to the NFL level. The Colts have a clear need at wide receiver. Mims is another one that's intriguing, a little bit more potential there, but like it's an interesting offense. Peyton really, I think, could find a way to get him involved. I'm not definitely not in on Jonathan Mingo. We'll start there because he's at 13. So don't really like Jonathan Mingo. I don't think that there's any metrics or anything that really say that Mingo is going to be good. Like you watch the film, it's not even overly exciting. Like I think he was overdrafted. I think he's going to become one of those guys that just kind of fizzles out. It could be Terrace Marshall all over again. I just am not in on him at all. Rashid Rice is another one I have some question marks about. Obviously gets a really good Kansas City landing spot. But like, I'm not in on him totally. Like they took Moore pretty early last year and didn't really use him. There's just some questions really watching his film as far as his game goes. Yes, he's pretty good at tracking the ball, good at getting downfield, decent in the catch situations. But he also struggles at times to really like track the ball over his shoulder, had some drops, doesn't really excite me after the catch. He's a little physical as opposed to shifty. So I'm on Rice. I really like the landing spot though. We'll go there. Yeah. I'm in on Reed, like you said. Jayden Reed's a guy that I really like.
I love him.
He's one of the guys that is in that category with Mingo. Like the statistics, advanced numbers don't look great. But I feel like he was just more of a product of the offense. You know, like Michigan's offense, not overly great. I think Reed's going to do extremely well in Green Bay. Tank Bigsby, yeah, we can talk about. We need a whole show for Tank.
There
Bigsby.
seems to be some Tank
Go
Bigsby.
To the,
like NBA Riggs is a
me.
big Tank Bigsby guy here.
Yeah, it's me too. So
okay,
we'll just go to the Dynasty podcast, fire that up. There's multiple episodes with Tank Bigsby, and you can hear me and Adam talk about Tank Bigsby.
Do you think he's going to be a pain in ETN's side right away?
100%.
Like I think he could be the short yardage back early and the goal line back right away. Yeah.
Nobody likes me much on Twitter lately because I like post stuff saying that Travis Etienne is toast, but he's not toast. But like he's not going to be a top 12 running back ever, in my opinion. He's just not. I think that Tank Bigsby is better than people want to give him credit. He is a very good running back. There's been a lot of slander as far as like his vision and stuff like that. Yes, it's inconsistent. Does he need work? Yeah. Every prospect always does. Nobody ever comes in the league perfect. But Bigsby is much better in short yardage area. Like you said, yeah, he's a smaller back. He's not like this big thumper, but like he doesn't shy away from contact. Turn on an Auburn game. He's willing to run you over. He does really well in short yardage where ETN doesn't. ETN was losing touches to guys last year once he was given that entire role. Like, yes, J-Rob was traded away. Cool. Yeah, ETN, here you go. Here's a large workload. Well, we got to supplement it with Hasty. We got to try Connor. We got to try this. It wasn't like ETN ran away with that role. And that's where a lot of his high-end metric numbers come from, is because he did have a large role because there was nobody else there. So like with Bigsby coming in, they used the third round draft capital. I'm really in on him. Is there going to be a ton of high-end fantasy numbers? Maybe not. Maybe he gets a couple big boom weeks because he falls in the end zone a couple times. But I just think that there's potential that these guys are way closer to a 50-50 touch than a lot of people want it to be. I've seen so many people say he's just a handcuff. He's never going to see anything. It's 80-20. It's 70-30. Like, I don't think so. Bigsby feels a little bit more like a Peterson style running back than ETN does.
Absolutely.
I know Belky was the one who drafted ETN, but like, he drafted him because Urban Meyer was like, oh, let's pair Trevor Lawrence and ETN together. Like, it's not Doug Peterson's guy, so he is talented, and I do think they use him. I don't think he disappears, but he literally feels like DeAndre Swift. That's what Travis Etienne is, and that's all you're ever going to get out of him is that top 24 mid-level RB2 type of production, kind of what he was last year. Like, that's just my feelings, and I just think that Bigsby's better than people do. So
I'm with you. I am with you. I feel like Doug Peterson loves to use multiple backs. He likes that short yardage back. We saw ETN struggle. I saw him struggle as a goal line back. Trevor Lawrence was kind of, getting some rushing touchdowns and some opportunities, and Peterson drafted him. So yeah, I am concerned as well. But I don't know how you had a straight face, Jerk. Did you not see that the whole time you were talking about? You actually really love Bigsby because you didn't even mention the news that popped up on the show here from our guy Quan. I don't know if you saw it, but
to be honest, I saw something pop up and I didn't even read it.
You just straight face.
I
Jeremy
should probably
loves
go to the Buffalo airport right now
Bigsby.
to like get my Hopkins signature, right? Like, I should just
for those that are not watching on our YouTube page or Game Plus
they
Network,
like straight up released them.
You're listening. The Arizona Cardinals just straight up released DeAndre Hopkins. Dude, you got to hang out for 5 more minutes. Tell the wife, tell the kids, you got 5 more minutes. We got to do a commercial break. We got to come back. We got to unravel this. This is craziness. Marquise Brown, Hollywood Brown, boom, 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 boom. Just like last year, how good he was. Like, that's my initial thoughts. And also, obviously, where is Hopkins going? Is he going to the Bills? Do we have to rewind the tape and scale back a little bit from Gabe Davis and the Keith Kincaid talk?
Yeah, we might have to.
DeAndre Hopkins still has it, guys. But last year at the start, when Hopkins wasn't with the team, we really saw Hollywood Brown. Michael Wilson is a guy that I like. He's going to jump up rookie-only draft boards. We got a break. Tell the wife you got 5 more minutes. Quick break. We got to regroup here. We'll back in a couple. Hang tight.
The future of fantasy sports is here with So Rare. Build your teams just like an owner. Buy, sell, or trade officially licensed digital player cards. Build your 5-player weekly lineup, and you could win rewards like tickets, autographed jerseys, and more. The future of fantasy sports is here with So Rare, taking Dynasty to the next level. The future of fantasy sports is here with So Rare. Build your teams just like an owner. Buy, sell, or trade officially licensed digital player cards. Build your 5-player weekly lineup, and you could win rewards like tickets, autographed jerseys, and more. The future of fantasy sports is here with So Rare, taking Dynasty to the next level.
Welcome back in. So we did have breaking news in the last block. We're having some fun in the green room here about you just being so stone cold into Tank Bigsby, while potentially you guys could be getting an alpha wide receiver in Buffalo in DeAndre Hopkins. Adam Schefter comes down and says that he is just straight up released. So now the guessing game of where he's going to go. I know he was linked to the Bills. I know he was linked to New England. I really hope he doesn't go to the Patriots. Adam Szymanski, any chance he lands with the Eagles? I don't think so, but my goodness, what a trio of wide receivers that would be. I think if he wants to take like just a couple $1 million and go, try to win the Super Bowl, I think that'd be a good shot for him, but he could really make some noise in Buffalo. What I will say is that, listen, this Arizona team is going to be the worst team in football this year. Budda Baker is probably next to be gone from this squad. They got a rookie head coach in Jonathan Gannon, who's a defensive-minded coach. Kyler's going to be away from the team for the first few weeks. They're going to be 0-5, 0-6 to start. They may just say, listen, sit a little bit more. I think, there's going to be some struggles with this team offensively, but Hollywood Brown and Rondale Moore are certainly in good spots. Hollywood was a top 12 wide receiver before Hopkins came back into that lineup. And of course he did suffer an injury, but again, shoddy play at the quarterback position for the first little bit. What's your initial thoughts? Where do you think he's going to go? And I know you would want him in Bills Mafia. How could you not, right? That's exactly what the Bills need, is an alpha across from Diggs. It's exactly what
I think he's going to likely want to be in Buffalo. I mean, he's been very vocal about that this offseason. It's going to be a question of probably money, and I guess if the Bills want him, I don't think they would not. But you're going to see him go to a contending team. That's where he's going to want to go. Definitely. You're going to probably talking about like the Chiefs, the Bills, the richer get richer is kind of where I'm going to be. Maybe the Eagles, like you said. I doubt the Eagles make that push with Brown and Smith are very good. I don't think they really moved that route with them. But I do think that your Chiefs and the Bills are probably the two front runners. I don't really see the Patriots make sense because there's not really anybody there. But Hopkins wants to win. I think that's going to be the situation, and he wants to play with a good quarterback. He kind of said that. So I think you're going to be kind of the Bills and the Chiefs seem like probably those front runners. Potentially, I mean, maybe Dallas gets involved. I
was thinking about Dallas too.
Maybe they really do need someone besides Lamb. Gallup's been Cooks is not cooked, but like he's better as a 3 than a 2. So maybe Dallas is in on him if you're looking NFC. Probably. For me, as far as like that question with Hollywood and Rondale Moore, I'm not too excited. I wasn't excited about this Cardinals offense. Like you had said, Chris, they're going to be bad. You're not going to get Kyler for most of the season, if not at all, in my opinion. What's the point of rushing him back if you're 0-6 at that point? That division's good. We talked about how Seattle's getting better. San Francisco is going to be just as good, if not better. The Rams, obviously, question mark. But like, I think that the Cardinals kind of just bow out. And honestly, they're probably going to be the first pick, and they're probably going to trade it, or they could move Kyler. I mean, there's that potential. Like, what if they want Caleb Williams?
I think it's a possibility.
Kyler's contract's tough, but like, who's going to pass up on Kyler? I mean, maybe not.
Yeah.
Ton of questions.
This is a good
Cardinals team. I just don't think that they're going to be that good.
That's a good point too. I forgot Bill O'Brien is back. He traded Hopkins and maybe but like, I don't know. Like, I don't think that he's going to New England because they're not a contender. There's too many good teams in the AFC. I know Bill really wants him and he respects Bill, but I don't think that's a possibility. But how about this? I know Cleveland drafted, Tillman, Cedric Tillman. Maybe imagine
they did say they wanted to like get more pass heavy. I mean, imagine Cooper.
Yeah. Imagine
Watson.
Cooper, oh my goodness, and Watson and Chubb to the backfield, and that'd be pretty good. We got to get you out of here. I kept you way longer than I said I would. Let's do this again sometime. This is a sneak peek, guys. Just a little bit of a sneak peek deeper. You see Tillman in there. Mostly running backs. And then this next block was Michael Wilson, who I do like, right? From a dynasty standpoint. I think this opens things up. Of course, it's going to take some time. This offense is going to be bad. We just talked about potential quarterback change, which I think is very, very possible. Pope, I think you're kind of spot on there with maybe them, having first overall pick and thinking about Caleb there as a new franchise quarterback, despite Kyler getting paid this time last year. But I do like Michael Wilson. And then there's a couple other deeper names that I wanted to get into, but when you get breaking news like this, you kind of got to go off topic a little bit.
Yeah, I'd say Michael Wilson in that block is a real good pick. Puka Nacua is another guy.
Puka Nacua is another guy.
At the beginning of this process,
love it.
Good talks already out of him out of OTAs. Like nobody's drafting him. It's crazy. Like
He's free
He just
right
seemed
now.
like Robert Woods to me / Debo Samuel prior to the draft process. Lands with the Rams. We saw McVay get Woods very fantasy viable. So I kind of like that name deep, as well as Zach.
Love it.
I liked ahead of the draft. Terrible draft capital, but again, Rams. I mean, questions with Cam Akers. How much do they really like him? Were they just stuck with him last year? There's potential to early work there from Cam Akers. I don't think he's a long-term guy in Dynasty, but if you need a late shot for a win now team, he's a good dart throw in my opinion. So
I agree. Good call. Appreciate you, dude. I know I kept you longer. Exciting. I love when there's breaking news like that. But
yeah, I mean, hopefully when I found out I have to ditch my wife and go to the Buffalo airport to meet DeAndre Hopkins,
get your side D-Hop. Let's go. Yeah. Oh man, excited. Hopkins still has it. Obviously, he still has it. There's no question he still has it. Okay, appreciate you. Popes FFH. Check out the Dynasty podcast, all the rankings, all the content over at ftnfantasy.com. We'll dig a little bit deeper with Pope in the coming weeks, but hopefully we helped you guys out with some rookie drafts and looking at the top 24 or so and a couple deep sleepers there. So we'll say goodbye to Jeremy for now. We got a little bit more football talk and some props around the dime. We'll be back in a couple. Hang tight. Like, what else is new, right? You get breaking news, you go a little bit longer. I'm not the best host here. I'm not breaking any news there, but I wanted to show you guys because George put in the work, but we're going to have this for the next couple of weeks to kind of dive deeper into this. But I wanted to show you guys. We kind of just showed it quickly. So we only have a couple minutes here, but I want to roll through some of this. There's not a lot of appealing names here, in my opinion, on this list. The Packers drafted 2 tight ends. I think Musgrave is the guy to own. He's the guy to go first. Tillman, Cleveland, who knows at this moment if Hopkins is there, but I think, if Hopkins goes, clearly Donovan Peoples-Jones, like, you got to kind of pour one out for him, but I think you pour one out for him anyways. Amari Cooper there and Tillman. They also bought low and Elijah Moore in the slot. Chase Brown could have a role sooner rather than later. I don't think Mixon has a large future with the Cincinnati Bengals, but it does sound like they're going to bring him back, restructure things, and he'll be there for another season. I do agree with Pope. I think Zach Evans is a decent dart thrower. I think Deuce Vaughn is as well. I mean, he's the guy that had just under 2,000 total yards last year in college football, more than anybody. He's not a guy that's going to get a lot of carries, between the tackles, first and second down, but he's very explosive, through the air. He's a great pass catcher, 40-plus grabs in each of the last 2 seasons, over 100 targets. I mean, he really is an explosive running back. These other guys like Eric Gray, Evan Hall, I don't feel like they're going to have large roles here in the NFL and into the future. Strange could, as Evan Ingram was just brought back on the franchise tag. And then here we are digging a little bit deeper. I think Tyler Scott over time, right, with Claypool. I don't really believe in Claypool as a long-term option in Chicago. Maybe Mooney is out the door. It's growing pains. I think Michael Wilson is a guy that I really like. I've been targeting him here, roughly outside pick 40 in terms of rookie only. And I just think definitely with Hopkins, he's going to continue to rise up boards. I like Tank Dell as well. I like Mechie in Houston. I think both of those guys, he's not a rookie. Mechie, we didn't see him last year, but he will be his first full season in the NFL this year. Trey Tucker's more of a punt return guy. He can have maybe a role in the slot in the future. But, I think Xavier Hutchinson is very interesting in Houston too. There's an opportunity here for some of these Texans. They're very thin. Robert Woods is not part of the long-term future there. A.T. Perry could be an option in a couple years as well, but not on this list. Bakanuka, which, Pope talked about last year after Cooper went down, Cooper Kupp, there just wasn't anybody stepping up inside this offense. And I don't really believe in Van Jefferson, Tutu Atwell. These guys, they're not a threat to be a solid number 2 in the NFL. So we could see Puka, be a decent option right away. Puka, a decent option right away as a year 1 redraft, but I think in the future as well. Yes, giddy up. Also a fun name to say if you say it right. Cam Akers all day long. He's one of the best steals in drafts right now. Oh man, we've gone a little long. Quick break. I got 4 pitching props for you guys. We'll be back in a couple.
Play So Rare MLB, a free revolutionary fantasy game and marketplace that transforms fans into general managers. Build your team with ownable digital player cards. Collect, buy, sell, and trade to optimize your lineup. Compete against So Rare managers from around the world. Climb leaderboards and advance to elite competitions. Based on your player's performance on the field, win rewards like game tickets, merch, and much more. Draft your set of free cards now at sorare.com/MLB. Play So Rare MLB, a free revolutionary fantasy game and marketplace that transforms fans into general managers. Build your team with ownable digital player cards. Collect, buy, sell, and trade to optimize your lineup. Compete against So Rare managers from around the world. Climb leaderboards and advance to elite competitions. Based on your player's performance on the field, win rewards like game tickets, merch, and much more. Draft your set of free cards now at sorare.com/MLB.
Fire time. Hunter Brown over 5.5 strikeouts -40, -140. These first 2 guys, Chris Sale over 5.5 -145. A little bit juice, but I'm taking them as singles. Maybe you could do some parlay action with either of those guys. I mean, Hunter Brown's the real deal. We're starting to see it now. He's starting to get into a little bit of a groove. 6+ K in just 5 of his 9 starts, but 9 strikeouts, 8 strikeouts in his last couple. He just faced Oakland. He's going to face Oakland again today. They're atrocious. In the last start against the A's, 6 innings, 1 earned run, 5 hits allowed, and 9 strikeouts. Reed Detmers over 5.5 strikeouts at -130. Detmers has 53 punchouts in 40 innings. He's got to start at home against the lowly Miami Marlins. They're no good at the game of baseball either. And he had 12 punchouts in his last start against a Minnesota team that doesn't really strike out a lot. They make some contact, so I was intrigued with that outing. And then Shane Bieber over 5.5 strikeouts +108 against the St. Louis Cardinals. Bieber's been a hit or miss. A great start in his last outing. I just would take that every time, no matter the opponent at 5.5, especially if it is plus money. Good luck around the diamond. Exciting day, football. You guys are all questions. I just can't get into it. We got to get out of here, unfortunately. Have a fantastic long weekend, and we will be back on Tuesday. Cheers.
it.